Morning. Yep. Mike is hot. Stan, thank you so much. Today is the Sunday of Memorial Day weekend, and we do want to honor all of those who are serving, but at Memorial Day we want to honor those who have served and they have actually given their life for our country. There's a lot of really neat things that we could do. Today's a little difficult out in the wind, but honestly, I think that the best way to honor those who gave their lives for our freedom is to do what we're doing. Anybody agree with that? Awesome. Okay, so thank you so much for tuning in. If you are in your car, if you are with us on the lawn, there's more of you than I expected. I'm so happy about that. Or if you are viewing online, today I have a message to share with you, I believe, that God put on my heart. And I will admit to you that less than a week ago, I would have said, hey, this is a good message, but it doesn't speak to me personally. And I will warn you that there are many of you who say, you know what, I'm past this, I'm on the other side of this, this has never been a part of me. But there are some of us who will hear this today, and it will be very liberating, right? We're starting a series today, and I've called this series, How Did We Get Here? How do we get out of here, and what do we learn while we're here? How do we make things better? It's not a great name. I'm working on the name, okay? I'm going to wordsmith that a little bit. But I do think this is a great place to start. God has given me this, and so I'm going to be in Genesis today. So this is in the Old Testament. You know that if you're new to the WoodBridge Church, you know that we didn't expect you to walk up here a Bible scholar. That's why we come. This is not a museum for saints. This is a hospital for sinners. We've all sinned. We all fall short of God's glory, okay? So we didn't expect you to be perfect walking up here. We didn't even expect you to know that Genesis is in the Bible, all right? So you're in good company. If you don't know where that is, it's the first book in the Bible. This is in the Old Testament. The Old Testament is God creating the world, choosing his people, promising that a Messiah will come. And when that Messiah comes, his name is Jesus. That's the New Testament. Today we're in the Old, and it's going to point to the New Testament. So hang with me. I'm going to read you a story about a man named Jacob. Now, here's the interesting thing. I want you to do some homework this week. If you want to read the entire book of Genesis, it is fascinating narrative. Okay, it's not boring at all. Honestly, when you get to Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, those can be a little slow of a read. Those are a little harder to get through. Genesis is absolutely fascinating. You will not be burdened by reading that at all. But especially in the story where we are, from chapter 37 on in Genesis. I'd like for you to read that, but if you don't know the story, we're going to pick up on the life of a young man named Joseph today. He's actually 17 years old when we start in on his story. Now, he is the son of Isaac, who is the son of Abraham. See, God showed up to a man one day. His name was Abram. He showed up to Abram and said, Abram, I'm going to make you the father of many nations. Now, this becomes what you know of as the Jewish people, okay? So this became the Hebrew people of the Old Testament. So he showed up to Abram and said, I'm going to make you the father of many nations. But Abram didn't have that many kids, right? So he had Isaac. And Isaac got the same promise, right? I'm going to make you the father of something. You're going to be the father of something great. We call these men our patriarchs because they kind of started it all, right? So Abraham had Isaac. Isaac gets the same promise, and now Isaac has Jacob. Jacob has the same promise. And so Jacob has 12 sons. So we pick up on his life. It's actually a pretty twisted plot. The dude ends up with 2 wives and 2 concubines. For those 4 women, he has 12 sons. He loves one woman more than the others. It's a really interesting story. But a son born to him late in his life, son number 11, his name was Joseph. And Jacob loved Joseph very much, and it caused a little bit of conflict. I want you to check this story out, okay? Chapter 37. I am starting in I'm just going to start at the top. Are you all ready for this? Jacob lived in the land where his father had stayed, the land of Canaan. These are the family records of Jacob. At 17 years of age, Joseph tended sheep with his brothers. Remember, Joseph is son number 11. The young man was working with the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah. Those are the two concubines of his father's wives, and he brought a bad report about them to their father. So the most loved son brings a bad report about the other sons to his father. Hang with me. Now Israel is Jacob's other name, okay? There's kind of a nation named that right now. Israel, Jacob, same person. God renamed him. Now Israel loved Joseph more than his other sons because Joseph was the son born to him in his old age. And he made a robe of many colors for him. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not bring themselves to speak peaceably to him. I don't want to put too much emphasis on word, but notice the word hated. Look for it again. Then Joseph had a dream. When he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, listen to this dream I had. There were 7 binding sheaves of grain in the field. Suddenly my sheaf stood up, and your sheaves gathered around it and bowed down to my sheaf. Okay, these are bundles of grain. He has this dream. And their bundles of grain are bowing to his. Are you really going to reign over us? His brothers asked him. Are you really going to reign over us? So they hated him even more because of his dream and what he said. Then he had another dream and told it to his brothers. Look, he said, I had another dream, and this time the sun, moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me. This is interesting because right now he only has 10 other brothers, but he says 11 stars. There's another son yet to be born. Sun and moon, that's mother and father, and 11 stars, my brothers, are going to bow down to me. He told his father and his brothers, and his father rebuked him. Remember, his father loves him. What kind of dream is this that you have had? He said, am I and your mother and your brothers really going to come and bow down to the ground before you? His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. Now, the key word that I want to hone in on today is hatred. And I know, you're writing me off because you don't understand. I have a lot of love in my heart. I'm a very loving person. I don't hate. I'm not full of hatred. I don't let it go there with anyone. I know. I said the exact same thing. Okay? But I think that as we read, you will find that hatred doesn't just show up one day. We harbor this, and it comes on. Hatred gets complex, and it will lead you to evil and regret. In this story, I don't want to give away the ending, but go ahead and read it. And these brothers hate until it leads them to a dark, dark place. In fact, one day, Joseph is sent by his father to check on his brothers, and when he goes out to check on his brothers, they say, here he comes, let's get him. So they grab him, and they throw him down a well, a cistern, a pit, that has no water in the bottom. He can't get out. First of all, that's got to hurt to get thrown down. Maybe you've read this story and never picked up on that part. That's got to hurt. You got to be pretty stinking mean to throw somebody down a well with no water at the bottom. Oh, I would never do that. Hang on. So they throw him down a well, but then the oldest brother, his name is Reuben. We named a sandwich after him because of his good deed here. His older brother, Reuben, said, let's not kill him. Let's do something different. And Reuben actually planned, hey, after everybody goes to bed, I'm going to sneak in, I'm going to steal him, I'm going to say, hey, run away. Because he couldn't stand the thought of killing his youngest brother. He still had some brotherly instinct, some care there somewhere. Now, they see a caravan coming of basically what you would maybe call like gypsies, right? And so they were coming, they were going into Egypt, they were selling spices, they were probably also a little bit involved in some slavery. And so they have an idea, let's not kill our brother. He is our brother after all. Let's not murder our brother. Instead, let's sell him to these gypsies. And so they did. So they sold him. And Joseph goes down and he gets purchased by a man, Potiphar. Potiphar is like the number 2 man in Egypt. He's very wealthy, and we'll get into the story of Joseph at a later date. But the brothers, who were otherwise pretty decent men, did something extraordinarily evil, mean. Now, I want to talk to you about why they did that today, because we have some of that. You may not be selling someone into slavery. You may not be throwing someone into a pit with no water at the bottom. But I think that hatred has a bigger hold on us than we will ever admit. And before we can move on, we've got to let go of some hatred. Now, I want to address you with what hatred does. And as we're talking about this, maybe you will find that I am harboring a little more hate in my heart than I ever suspected I would or could, okay? Here's the first thing that hatred does to us. Proverbs chapter 26, verse 24, I'm going to read this to you. Hatred, the first thing you have to understand is hatred is not always just about someone else. They aren't the ones carrying hatred. Now, many of you will need more than what I'm going to talk about today. We could talk, maybe we need to do some one-on-one counseling, because you have someone that you've hated because they have done something awful. They have done something wretched, okay? I completely get that. I've spoken with many of you, maybe in my office or on the street, and you begin to tell me about these things. So I'm not necessarily honing in on just someone who committed a heinous crime against you. We can talk about that later. Right now I'm talking about maybe that hate that we harbor, and I'm talking about the zone where we own that hate, where it becomes about us and really no longer about anyone else. Here's what I mean. Proverbs 26:24. A hateful person disguises himself with his speech and harbors deceit within. When he speaks graciously, don't believe him, for there are 7 detestable things in his heart. Though his hatred is concealed by deception, his evil will be revealed to the assembly. Notice how God is speaking about hatred, and he's talking about the person that hates. Well, come on, God. Some people have a great reason to hate. There have been some heinous, awful things that have been done against that person that hates. Why don't you forfeit that? Why don't you admit that? Hey, maybe they have a reason to hate. Did you ever think about that, God? Hold on, because he gives us verse 27. The one who digs a pit will fall into it. And whoever rolls a stone, it will come back on him. Listen, the hatred is not always about the person that you're projecting it towards. Sometimes that hatred just comes back on you. Your hatred, every time you hate and you harbor those feelings of hate, it's like digging a pit. When you're digging a pit, guess who's in the bottom of the pit? You. Hatred and unforgiveness are kindred in this, that they're both like consuming poison, hoping someone else will die. Hatred will kill you. You roll a stone up a hill, eventually will fall back on you. You dig a pit, and you will be the one in the bottom of the pit. Hatred will eat you up, and then it becomes about you. Does hatred ever overcome you? And the answer is no, but hang on. Do you ever come home from work and you pass a place where somebody did something to you, and you just start thinking about it, and by the time you get home, you're in a completely horrible mood? Or a song comes on the radio that reminds you of somebody who did something to your mom, your friend, your sister, your brother, and you begin to think about them, and your total countenance and demeanor changes? I thought maybe more of us would identify with this than what we had originally thought. It's because we begin to harbor those feelings of hate, and of course we don't call it that, but that's basically what it becomes. So Jesus obviously gave the best analogy when he said it's like rolling a stone uphill, or it's like digging a pit because it'll come back on you. I have another analogy. Of course, Jesus's are better, but I have my friend Ryder right here, and he's going to help me. Come up here, Ryder. I need your help, my friend. Ryder is going to help me. Now, Ryder is going to represent you. Can everybody give him a round of applause? Can somebody put on the chat, this man is handsome, something like that? Okay, if you're watching this online, I mean, this man, look at this. This is pristine, boys. He deserves some credit. Now, Ryder is going to represent you, and you know that you have somebody in your life that everything that they do just ticks you off. Okay? I was just talking to my wife yesterday. I have a dog, and everything that he does I think is hilarious. Even when he's being a real stink, man. I mean, he'll do something completely wrong. It's just hilarious. She has a dog that can do the exact same thing, and I'm like, we need to get rid of that dog. I hate that dog, right? Does the exact same thing, but because I have harbored hatred against this dog, I am confessing, I have hatred against this dog. She's cruel, she's mean, she's a total disgrace to canines everywhere. Now, they do the exact same thing, but because of the hatred that I've harbored up in my heart, it becomes very annoying. So somebody maybe has done something, and this is pretty heavy. I want you to hold this above your head. Somebody, let's grab both sides of it. Mom, did you sign the waiver? Okay. Hold it. Now this is get a little assistance. This is the hatred that you have held up in your heart. And then what happens is, because the hatred no longer becomes about the person we hate, but it becomes about us. Think about that. Who's the person you hate? Well, they did this. But you know what? So is half of the population in the world. What's the difference? This person did it to me. For example, when you were young, guys, did you ever have a girl cheat on you? And then you hated her, right? But then your new girlfriend, she's single because she cheated on her last boyfriend. But you didn't hate her. You loved her. Exact same thing. But the difference was, she did it to me. Does that make sense? So the hatred obviously no longer becomes about the act that they've committed, because you've accepted this person with open arms, with love. But you've hated this person. Now, I know that's really deep and personal, and I'm not looking at anybody when I say that. It's just an example. But it becomes this that we hold up. And it no longer becomes about the person that we hate, but it becomes about us. And then they do something else. Well, she's got a new boyfriend now, and he's not good. And then, like, what is that? What does that matter to us? And it just stacks on. You got that? You got that? And so everything that they do just becomes worse and worse. And we just keep stacking up the weight. You got this? I'm going to have to end this because my arm's getting tired. We keep stacking up the weight, but guess what? Eventually, you can't hold up the weight any longer. Joseph's brothers couldn't hold up the weight of their hatred any longer. In one passage, 3 times we read that they hated him even more. And guess what? That didn't affect Joseph as much as it affected them. What happens when you get more hate than you can bear? What do you do to it? Eventually, you have to let go of it. And it's a whole big load of bricks. And now, this load of hatred that we've had to let go of has done more harm than what somebody initially did to us. We've offended somebody who offended us worse than they've ever offended us. Did that make sense? Can we get a round of applause for my He-Man friend here? You can go sit down. Thanks a lot. Somebody write He-Man on the comments so he can go back later and know he did good. Hatred is not always about them. Sometimes, quite frankly, it's about us. We've got to own our share of our hatred. We're going to talk about how you deal with that. Quickly, I'm going to go through a few other things that hatred does, but keep in mind that normally when we hate, our pride is involved somewhere. Again, I would not have said that this message applied to me until this week when God began to show me my own areas of hatred. This is the thought that came to mind. Well, why would I hold this against this person? Everybody does the same thing that this same person has done. And then it occurred to me, the difference is they offended me when they did it. So the hatred became about my pride rather than somebody's action. Here's a few more things that hatred does. Let me ask just a really profound question first. When we hate, has your hatred towards someone lasted for so long. This is just, maybe this is for somebody, maybe nobody. Put this in your glass, drink it if it's quenching, throw it away if it's not. Has your hatred lasted so long that whoever you hate has changed? But because of your hatred, you cannot be reconciled, no matter what they say? If we can remove hatred, I think we will reconcile so much faster. There are people who could come to most of us today and give us the most genuine, most heartfelt apology in the world, and we would not accept it. It ceases to become about them, and now it's about us. Here's what else it does. Galatians 5:19. Hate is of the flesh. Hate is not of God. Now the works of the flesh are obvious: sexual immorality, moral impurity, promiscuity, adultery, sorcery, hatred. Do you notice that hatred is listed right behind sorcery? These are works of the flesh. This is not of God. Number 3, love and hate cannot, do not, will not coexist. I know that's harsh. These are not my words. I'm not making these points up. I'm just getting it from Scripture. 1 John 4:20. If anyone said, and this is, you might want to write this down just to go fact check me. This is rough. Like God slapped me. This is a 2 before upside the face. If anyone says, I love God, and yet hates his brother or sister, he is a liar. For the person who does not love his brother or sister whom he has seen cannot love God whom he has not seen. Is that rough? Man. Hate, number 4, will hold you back. And this is why I want to talk about this today, because I don't want you to be held back. I want God to take you to a new place. And maybe the thing that's holding you back from going to a new place is hatred, because it will hold you back. Check out number 4, 1 John chapter 2, verse 11. But the one who hates his brother or sister is in the darkness, walks in the darkness, and doesn't know where he's going because the darkness has blinded his eyes. Hatred will blind you from what's around you. Somebody associated with the person that you hate will have a solution that you need, but you won't even be able to accept it. You won't be willing to hear them out because they're friends with somebody that I hate, but they're the one who could give me what I need. Blinded. I want nothing to do with anybody who has anything to do with the one that I hate. You're not hurting them. Hurting you. The 5th thing, hate will always, this sounds a lot like Martin Luther King Jr., one of his speeches. He might have gotten that from a book I've read. Hate will always lead to more hate. Understand that. Hatred will always lead to more hatred. Where's the origin of hatred? Sometime between the creation of the world and when Adam and Eve were deceived in the Garden of Eden. That's Genesis chapter 1 if you've never read it. There was a fall. Satan fell from heaven, was cast out of heaven because he was the one who was there tempting Adam and Eve. So somewhere between creation and the fall, Satan grew hatred towards God, and look where it has gone in the world. There's one antidote to hatred. We'll talk about that in a moment. Hatred will always breed, will always grow, will always create more hatred. This is why Jesus' teachings were so profound. Because the world has taught us, if you hate, destroy. And that will end it. If you hate them, destroy them, and that will end them. That's working really well in politics, isn't it? It doesn't work anywhere, in any realm of life. Look how many wars are in the history of the world, and it seemed to not end hate. In every war, almost every war, somebody's won it. But hate lived on. It will always bring more hatred. Proverbs chapter 10, verse 12. Hatred stirs up conflict, but love covers all offenses. Do you remember in the New Testament, maybe you've never read it, and that's okay because I'm going to tell you the scripture anyways, but Jesus was talking to the people, And everyone, for the history of time, it's always been, if you hate them, conquer them, take over, win. And Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. He said, they say, hate your enemy and love your neighbor, but I say, love your enemies. It is a completely different teaching. Why would he say that? Because he knows that hate will only bring more hate. And the only way to conquer hate is with love. And here's the thing. If hatred is digging a pit and you find yourself at the bottom of it, then love is building a mountain. And you will find yourself on top. They hated Jesus. And how did he respond? This is Romans chapter 5. While we were helpless, while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. While we were an enemy of God, Christ died for us. The hero died for the villain. And look at what that has done. If you have accepted and you practice the teachings of Jesus, it has brought peace to your life. I've yet to find the person who goes, you know what, I'm trying this whole love your neighbor thing. I've yet to find that. Nobody's coming to me going, hey, followed your advice. I showed kindness and compassion to people. I loved people. I'm miserable. Nobody's coming to me with this information. His teachings were profound. How do I get rid of my hatred? Okay, you talked me into it because I was punching the walls in the shower last night. How do I get rid of this hatred? First is, I'm not just going to say, just go love. Just go be loving. Because there's a stumbling block you've got to get past first. This is the tough one. You got to confess your hatred. I've yet to see anybody who really and genuinely conquered a sin who didn't confess it. Whether it be an addiction, whether it be a spiritual stronghold, maybe a sin that I've hidden, that I've committed, I've yet to see somebody overcome that who did not first confess this to the Lord. 1 John chapter 1 verse 9 says this: if we confess our sins, he is faithful and righteous to forgive us our sins and cleanse us from all unrighteousness. He will be faithful. He will take that hatred out of your heart. But first you've got to give it to him. What does that mean? Literally, you need to find the place where you can speak the words out loud to Christ and say, I have hatred in my heart. I got upset this week, Monday of this week. I'm telling you, a week ago, this would not have applied to me. I got upset. My wife and I were arguing. There's somebody that she is continually like, you're overboard. And I'm like, you don't understand. This person's the Antichrist. You know, not really that extreme, but we're always arguing about this. And, she continued to rebuke me, which she has a bad habit of doing. I said, I gotta take a drive. So I just took a drive. And God began to speak to me, and I for the first time, I admitted that I was harboring hatred I would have never confessed, because I didn't know that I was watering the seeds of hatred. I hadn't plotted out anything evil. I hadn't written this person any bad messages, nothing like that. But I was harboring those seeds, and they were beginning to grow, and it was showing. And so I took a drive, and I had to confess to the Lord, as you know what? I'm harboring seeds of hatred, and I let that go, and I want to explain, but I can't, that it left me. I'm not saying that's going to be everybody. Listen, you're not me, I'm not you. It's not all going to be the same. And then I realized that I'm going to have to do the same thing tomorrow. I told you, hatred and forgiveness are kindred. They're together on a lot of things. They're not exactly the same, but they run hand in hand a lot of the times. And maybe you've forgiven somebody in the past just to wake up the next day having not forgiven them. It's a daily thing. So I realized that, but I want you to understand that God took a weight off my shoulders in an instant when I confessed to him that I was harboring seeds of hatred. Number 2, I've got to reply with love. Matthew 5:43. This was Jesus teaching that I was trying to quote earlier and totally botching it. I want the worship team to go ahead and come up, by the way. You have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be children of your Father in heaven, for he causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good. He sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. Don't withhold love from people just because they're unrighteous. Why? Because Jesus doesn't. Because they hated him so much that they murdered him. It was an excruciating death. And some of his last words were what? Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. I know the last was, it is finished. But Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. He responded to hatred with love. First thing I need you to do is confess it. And the second thing is you're going to get put in the situation where you are able to respond with hatred, or you're able to respond with love. And I need you to be so in tune with the Father, and he's forgiven you of what you've done wrong, so I'm going to turn around, I'm going to forgive somebody else for what they've done wrong. It's got to be premeditated love, or you won't respond that way. But I need you to respond with love. Remember, we are children of a God who died for the ones who hated him. Hatred and love will not coexist, because God is love. There's nothing evil in him. There is no hatred in our God. So if you have hatred against somebody, it's not of God. I know that's easy to say when somebody has done something so harmful to you. I have so much more to say about that. Call me. You guys come see me after this. If you're online, drop us a private message, 254-592-1080. Text me. We'll set up a time. We'll meet. I completely understand and sympathize with you. It's not that easy. In a lot of circumstances, it's not. But for many of us, it is. It is absolutely that easy, that we confess and we begin to respond with love, and that hindrance that holds you back can be completely removed from your life. It's time to move on. It is time to follow Jesus to a whole new place. I'm going to pray in just a minute. And when I do, the worship team is going to play. They're going to play 2 songs. If you are here and you're really trying to keep your distance from people, maybe you say, I don't want to catch this for whatever reason. During that first song, please feel welcome to but we will play 2. Also, James is standing over here with a bucket. If you are a Christian, part of the way that we worship was the tithe and offering. If you have that physically, you may drop that into the bucket or just wave him on. Don't come to him, he'll come to you. Just wave him on. Also, if you're online, P.O. Box 51, Ranger, Texas 76470, or you can go to our website, thewoodbridgechurch.com, scroll down to the bottom and donate online. It's pretty easy to do that. But I want to pray for you. And I'm going to ask God to just show us these areas where he can continue to heal us. And we're going to go through some powerful texts next week. But this had to be the start. This had to be the start. Because this is not the one thing, but this is one of the things that's going to hold us back from growing deeper in our walk with God. So I hope that you'll take me up on this. If God's speaking anything to you today, let us know. We want to pray with you. You say, you know what, I've got hatred. Maybe it's as easy as that, but I can't bring myself to do it. We'll pray with you. We will set out a week. We have people on standby to pray with you. So please reach out to us. Father, we love you. You responded in a way, God, that we're just quite frankly not strong enough to do. But Holy Spirit, if you will help us, if you will be in us and with us, work through us, we can forgive. God, we can restore and heal relationships. We can block things out of our lives, Lord, that you're not pleased with. Because, God, we want to move. We want to bring this city to you. So we need you to do it, Lord. We need you to do it in our lives. Start revival right in our own lives today. And we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.